So last week, I think like the weather, most people were scared to drive and come out. But who was here? Rachel was here, and the other Rachel.
אני לא הייתי כי הבת שלי הגיעה.
נכון. Don't worry, we don't take attendance.
Walk with the babies.
You know, people, whenever I come to...
את ה-abbreviation, זה בשביל קהילת הספרדית, ותתחיל את הצ'ק.
You know, whenever I come to the Bet Knesset and ladies come after me, which takes a lot because I come pretty late. But they always tell me, don't worry, tomorrow I'll try to come on time next week. And I always tell them, you know, I'm not the secretary. And I'm not employed. I try to work for Borei Olam, but I'm not the secretary and I don't take attendance. Whenever you come, you come. It's good you come. But we touched a little bit on Simcha. We were talking about, we said that Yehoshua ben Nun did not get Nivuah until the 30 days of Avelut were up. We said the reason being is because Shekhinah does not rest on a person that's Batzvut. And so we have to define what is Simcha, right? Not only a negative, but what's the positive state? What is Simcha? And how do we get it? So last week we talked about what it is, and this week we have to figure out how to get it. The Kutzker Rebbe, Menachem Mendel of Kutz, was known to be very, very sharp. And he said, if you see, it says, Mishenichnas Adar, Marbim B'Simcha. And then it says, Mishenichnas Av, Mimatim b'simcha, right? When Adar comes, we increase simcha, and when Av comes, we decrease simcha. So he said that means that your level has to be simcha, right? It has to be that the middle level is simcha, and you're always either increasing it or decreasing it. But the status that you start, right? For example, if I tell you have to increase your dosage of B12, it means you're already taking B12, right? You have to decrease it, that means you're also already taking it. So the fact that it says Misha Nichnas Adar.
The can.
The can.
Looking at the can.
Yes. Colors.
ואם הוא ראה אותם, שמים את זה לכיוון הפה, אז
Let's not rip it. And we discussed last week that Simcha doesn't mean bouncing off the walls. Right? You know, some people confuse Simcha with Holilut. You know, they say a story. There was once this guy who was seeing a psychiatrist for years, and he was just really suffering from depression, years. And the psychiatrist said, "Look, I don't think it's I can't do it for you anymore." He said, "I have one solution. There's what they call the clown of Venice, and they say he is hysterical. He performs, he makes people laugh, he does acrobatics, he just has the funniest jokes. He's the biggest comedian." And he said, "Maybe go there and see. Maybe he could help you." I've done my work. The guy starts crying so bitterly, and the psychiatrist said, "What happened?" He said, "You know the clown of Venice? That's me. That's me." And you know, it's interesting, like this year, I don't know many comedians, but take somebody like Robin Williams, right, where he made the whole world happy,
but he wasn't.
And yet he wasn't a happy person. He struggled so terribly and unfortunately lost his life to his depression. Right? Lost his life, where sometimes you see people who are so funny, but they're not happy. They're not happy. And we often mistaken funny for happy. We often mistaken funny for happy because people put on shows and it's a good thing. Yeah? You don't have to... Sometimes we think you have to be so honest with the whole world. It's not true. You have to be 100%. Oh, so we're going to get there. But there's a very big differentiation between simcha and what we define as happiness. And we said, in essence, simcha is a feeling that comes from a thought process. What's that thought? A thought, machshava. What's that thought process? And we talked about the Bet Aharon, the third stone Rebbe, who says, we're not talking about simcha shel mitzvah, where you're on fire with doing mitzvot and you're so happy. He said, we're just not talking about depression. The fact that you wake up in the morning and say, Ribono shel olam, you've created me. You gave me back life. You have a perfect plan for me. And I'm willing to accept it. That's what brings a person to a menuchat hanefesh, a certain peace that regardless of what's going to happen today, I'm at peace. I said, that's what simcha is. Because it's not just peace. I'm not just making terms with what you gave me. Because you know, when you say you made terms with something, you really didn't. You know, people always say when they got married, you have to compromise what you're really looking for. And I say, no you don't. No you don't. Because if you think you married somebody that you compromised for, don't marry them. And it's not fair to him. It's not fair to him. Why should you marry somebody you compromised for? I know somebody very close to me who at age 32. She got engaged. Now my circle's past 19-year-old. Yeah, so 32 is like you're ancient. People used to come over to her every time. Oh, Mazal Tov, Bezrat Hashem by you, and they would squeeze harder and harder. Yeah. And I remember I asked her. I said, "What made you marry this guy?" Right? She went out with hundreds of guys. So what made you marry him? Oh yes, so they say that. You just remind me of a joke. They say there was once.
Listening to everybody.
They say you want to get rid of people telling you Mitzvah Shem Bayu. There was once this guy who was a real old bachelor, 40, 45, and it just wasn't happening. And everybody kept on saying, Mazal Tov, Mitzvah Shem Bayu, Mitzvah Shem Bayu. You know the way it's Mitzvah Shem Bayu. So like one word. And one wedding, all the great aunts stopped telling it to him. And he asked friends, how did you do this? For years they've been bothering you, and every time it's not fun. So I'll tell you. We had a levaya, we had a funeral of one of our great aunts and uncles, and I went over to them and I whispered, I said, Mitzvah Shem Bayu next. I said, that's it, they stopped. Now they don't bother me anymore. Right? So sometimes you have to not answer people sometimes the way they talk.
It's a joke.
But
I know.
But right? No, don't tell it to people for real.
No, it's a tough way to talk.
Sometimes that's the way you have to tell it to people. Sometimes you have to tell.
That's believable.
Then it's not a joke. Then it's sad because it's true.
It's true.
But I asked her, I said, what made you pick him? And to be fair, I knew a lot of the guys she had dated, and I thought they were much better than the guy she married. And she said, Vori, I'll tell you, when I decided I want to get married, that's when I suddenly got married. She said, it's true, for 32 years I was dating, but I had a list that matched 15 different people, not one person. Right? I wanted somebody that was very, very kind and quiet, but also very outgoing and loud. Somebody who was a real community man, but also a family man. I was looking for something that didn't even match. I wanted 10 different people. And then suddenly when I decided to get married, I didn't compromise on one thing. Because suddenly I realized what I really need and what I really want, and he matches everything 110 plus.
Wow.
Right? And that's the difference between simcha and compromising. Where you wake up in the morning and you say, Ribono Shel Olam, you have the best plan I could ever thought of. And whether it goes the way I like, the way I don't like, I accept that your plan is fantastic. And from that, we develop a feeling of, so now I could sing and dance. Because I'm not running the show. I don't know about you, but I'm sure you've planned a Shabbat, an event, a Chanukah party. It takes work. Right? It takes work. You have to remember the paper goods. You have to make 16 phone calls and emails and then follow up. And remember who you did invite and didn't invite and who's going to be insulted because you didn't invite them 6 times. Right? There's so much planning that goes into one small event. Yeah?
למה? אצלי לא בוכים.
Well, it's a dial
לא בוכים, מה קרה מאמא?
So you can imagine if you have to run the whole world, of course you walk around sad and depressed because it's so hard to run your own life, forget about running the whole world. And then when we come to a place where we 100% believe that Hashem runs the world, so then suddenly we're free. Right? We're free. It's kind of like the Chavetz Chaim used to say, let me tell my husband to come in. Chavetz Chaim used to say, imagine stop on the highway, right? You see somebody with a big bag walking, right? You see somebody on the road walking, and you stop off and you say, do you need a hitch? Where are you going? In Brooklyn you have that. You have hitching points, right? You're going to Lakewood, so you stand on this corner, you're going to Muncie at that corner, and it's beautiful. People always give each other hitches. But imagine you get into somebody's car, and in the back he's sitting with his luggage on his lap. So you want to put it in my trunk? I have room in the trunk. You want to put it into the trunk? And the person will say, it's enough that you're giving me a ride. You don't have to also carry my luggage. And you look at this person and you say, you're such an idiot. The car's moving anyway, right? So either you put it in the luggage and you're free to move around, or you sit on holding it, you think you're carrying the whole weight, and in essence the car's moving. Right? Borei Olam, Hashem says to us, don't worry, it's on me.
Thanks, Nora. I'm just trying to ignore it.
He says, it's on me. I'm putting you into this world. I'm the pilot here. It's true that we have to act also. Right? We have, a lot of times when things go wrong, we blame Hashem. And a lot of times it comes from, I remember it was a great picture, a great quote on a photocopy machine in camp. It said, mismanagement on your part doesn't constitute an emergency on mine. Right? Just because you mismanaged your life and you didn't bring the copies 3 days in advance, suddenly you need it in 10 seconds, it's not my fault that it's an emergency. Right? But when you manage your life and you do the normal things that you're meant to do, then we have to just say, Ribono Shel Olam, I'm riding on your horse. I'm with you. And, today in psychology, they think like, it says, "En davar chadash tachat hashemesh." There's nothing new under the sky, right? What was comes. It's interesting. Sometimes today you hear speakers, they rant and rave how this generation is the worst generation, the hardest generation. If you open Tanakh, there were a lot worse generations than us. There were a lot harder challenges, and Baruch Hashem, they got through it. They got through it, and we're going to pull through with flying colors too. The tactic of scaring us has never really worked. It doesn't work. Most people don't change because of fear. And even if they change, it's temporary. As soon as the fear is gone, so does the change go. Right? So does the change go. You don't have to worry so much. So in psychology, they have this new, it's not so new, it's pretty old in psychology. It's called CBT. It's called Cognitive Behavioral Therapy. Why? Because originally, right, Freud came out with, let's talk and talk and talk. And what happens when you talk? So it's interesting. The more you talk, the more you feel. The more you feel, the more you talk. And you get into a vicious cycle where some people can, for 7 to 10 years, still be discussing problems that happened 20 years ago, and they never moved. And then finally, 10 years later, after they finished talking and digging up all the raw emotions, so it didn't leave them any smarter. It left them a lot poorer. Right? And in the end of the day, nothing changed.
He doesn't like the things.
He likes only his mother. He doesn't even like his father. Unless she's not around.
לא,
Come, let me tell you.
הוא עייף. הוא לא צריך לישון?
הוא כן צריך לישון עכשיו.
אני רואה שהוא עייף. פוש.
גדול.
Okay. I'll hold him. He's going to fall asleep. It's amazing.
ניסיתי ללכת איתו.
Talk about simcha. I don't know which rabbi once said, you can learn so many things from a little child. Right? But they need so little. When they need something, they cry. When they get it, they stop. Right? But I always say, so back to cognitive behavioral therapy. So now they came out with something that instead of sitting and talking, right? It doesn't make sense. I was just talking to a girl that has been calling me recently, and I told her she has to find herself a competent therapist because it can't be me. I'm not licensed. I practically I can't treat her. I said I'm happy to learn with you. I said I've been to 15 therapists. I went to energy healers. Nothing else. And she's saying something that's true. Sometimes, people go for therapy. The key has to be competent. They have to be somebody just like you would never, you don't walk into a jewelry shop and give me the cheapest thing. You want the best thing, so you have to pay the price. You have to look at it. Bring another person to check it. It's the same thing when you go to therapy. You don't just choose somebody off the mat. Just, they take your insurance. Okay, that's a good start. But they have this new thing that's called cognitive behavioral therapy, which, as much as you talk, you also practically change behaviors. For example, thank you. He wants to go to sleep. What happened? We said simcha is the feeling. The question is, how do you get the feeling? Right? Sometimes you wake up in the morning, by the time 8 o'clock rolls around, and you just got the kids out, or you got your husband out, you had breakfast, you burnt your toast, you're not in the mood. You're just not in the mood of being happy. Right? The question is, how do you inspire happiness? How do you inspire that feeling of, wow, thank you Hashem for making me alive? Right? Thank you for giving me the challenges that I have. Thank you for letting me embrace them. And in CBT there's an interesting thing. They say even if you don't, there's an expression, fake it until you make it. Right? Fake it until you make it. Why? It's something that really is true. Right? We said that all the examples that we had, whether it was with Yaakov Avinu, right, or over here, Yehoshua, Shaul, Elisha, they said in order to get us back to a state of happiness, we're going to bring somebody to Chuli Minagen, like somebody to play music. Because the truth is, when you do something, right, you can change your emotion. For example, Sundays, right, I don't know, Sundays, sometimes people stay in their pajamas till about like 4 o'clock in the afternoon, yeah? By the time Sunday night hits, especially, I ask my girls most of the time, right? Between Motzei Shabbat sitting up all night watching Netflix, and then Sunday staying in bed and not getting dressed till 4. By the time 7:30 rolls around, they're very sad. You feel very empty. You didn't do anything with your life, right? And I tell them, well, a simple trick is do something. Get out at 9 o'clock in the morning, do something, right? But even if you do nothing and you just get dressed, you get out of your pajamas, you put on a little bit makeup, you suddenly start feeling like a different person. You start feeling better about yourself, right? And nothing changed. You still didn't do anything productive, right? You still didn't even get out of the house, and somehow you feel better, right? You know when you're going to a wedding, right? Why do we dress up? Besides for that, it's festive. You know, how many of you like to wear high heels? Yeah. There's something about when you wear. So I stopped wearing heels. That's right, Marlene. You have the height. I stopped wearing heels when I moved to Israel. Yeah, when you move to Israel, you realize how stupid people are with heels, because everything is up or down, and it's a bunch of cobblestones. So if they're teeter-tottering, falling. Yeah. But the truth is, when you get dressed up, you carry yourself differently. You look differently. You feel different. And music has a very interesting power of transforming what you feel. Right? If you just put on, they had once years ago in the New York Times a crazy story where metal music was in. Now metal I wouldn't call music, it's just a bunch of banging, crazy banging, and they had one of these concerts, and a guy got up and stabbed his best friend to death. And when they took him in for questioning, they said, what? And he was crying. He said he doesn't know. He said he was in the middle of this concert and this madness just took over him. And when they went back to the concert hall and they replayed what was playing, they actually found that the music that he was playing was music that was meant to evoke feelings of murder. And you look at something, obviously this is something very extreme. But the truth is, music has something that words don't. I want to read to you why. So what is it about music? So here I have this actually beautiful book called Shirat Kol Chai, which, if you look at the back, has a very bittersweet story to it. In, maybe 2001, I think by the second Intifada, in Otniel, they went, Mechablim, right? Terrorists went into yeshiva, and the boys were there. They were learning. It was on a Friday night. And heroically, these boys closed the doorways to make sure that the attackers don't go further into the yeshiva. Unfortunately, these 5 were killed that day. I believe 4 of them were in the yeshiva and another one elsewhere. And their friends decided to compile something, Lilu Nishmatam. So they put together a whole bunch of different songs. Otniel is an interesting yeshuv. You have like neo-Hasidim, sort of, like very into music and singing and dancing, but they're also very dati. It's an interesting mix. So they put this together. They and the Rosh Yeshiva, it's a bunch of guitar notes for different songs, and with it you have a whole bunch of different sayings from Rabbi Nachman of Breslov, the Baal Shem Tov HaKadosh, and on music. And in the beginning they have an introduction over here, which I was looking at and I want to share with you. So it's called Niginat HaNefesh. This is from the Hadmor Mipiasetzna Hashem Yimkom Damo. The Piasetzna Rebbe, his name was Clonimus Kalman Shapiro. He was a rabbi in the 1930s, early 1940s in Warsaw, Poland. He lived in the Warsaw ghetto, and he was known to be the rabbi of children. He said, for the adults, there are enough big people out there. There are enough rabbis. Everybody has who to ask. But what about the little kids? Right? What about teenagers? And he wrote a lot of different svarim. And he said he knows that he's not going to make it out of the ghetto alive. He said, but he knows that there's going to be a time and place that the Jews are still going to live, because Yerushalayim is forever going to exist. And he says, I beg anybody that finds my manuscripts should take them to Yerushalayim and publish them. Have them published. Huh?
Brother lived in Israel.
Oh, beautiful.
Left a note to take it to his brother.
So what happens? After the war, he actually died in the Warsaw ghetto. After the war, miraculously, they uncovered his manuscripts. They found them, and he had dug them deep down into the earth, and they found them, they published them. We have some on the shelves, so like the Chovot HaTalmidim, the duties of students, which he has a beautiful introduction to education over there. He has a couple of different Eish Kodesh is his very, very spiritual Torah that he brought forth. And he writes about song, right? Nigina. So he says something interesting. He says, when I talk to you, so I give you a description of something. For example, if you ask me, what color is Marlene's shirt? So I'll tell you it's red. Right? Now if you didn't see Marlene, now you know for sure her shirt's red. But you also don't know, maybe, could it be blue, could it be yellow, could it be purple? The answer is no, because I told you exactly what it is. Right? So on the one hand, words tell you what something it is. On the other hand, it gives it a gvul. Right? It boundarizes it. It can't now be what your imagination is. Right? It's almost the difference between a book and a movie. Right? Books let you imagine things. The movie, there's the character. You lost your imagination. Right? Words, as much as they describe things, they also put a cap on it. He said, but what happens when your neshama wants to talk? But it doesn't want to talk the language of just speech. It has so much more to say. It wants to talk something that words can't grasp. So that's when we start singing. That's when you start singing the music of the neshama. And in essence, that's what music really is. You know, it says that chazanim are naranim. The chazanim are fools. Why? It says because music, the Shaar HaNegina, is right near the Shaar HaTshuva. Right? The gate of tshuva and the gate of music are so close to each other. And they say chazanim are such fools because often they access one and they don't translate it to the other one. Right? And if you've ever heard a piece of music where you just listened and sometimes you just start crying. Right? And you don't even know why you're crying. You're not sad. You're not sad. You're just feeling inspired. Right? You're just feeling inspired. That's your neshama talking. Because with our heads and our mouths, so we talk. Right? We talk to people, we relate, we say what we feel, we say what we want. But sometimes there's something so deeply locked in our neshama that can't come out. And then suddenly you put on music. Yeah, if you ever went to a Jewish wedding, a real Jewish wedding, right? You just watch them dancing. And you watch the dancing. It's something you can't put into words. You can't put into words that joy. Which is why it says, Mi shelo ra'ata simchat bet hashoeva. Right? Somebody who didn't see simchat bet hashoeva, lo ra'a simcha b'yamav. You can't translate that joy because how are you going to explain it? Right? It's like I'm trying to explain to you what chocolate tastes like. If you want to know what chocolate tastes like, so you have to taste it. Right? You want to know what simcha tastes like, so you have to taste it. And the Piasetzner Rebbe says, in order to get to that simcha, you have to tap into the music. Right? Now some people, we all have different genres. Some people like rap, and some people like metal, and some people like old songs and Israeli folk music. Doesn't matter. You have to find something that talks to your neshama. And when the Neviim said, bring chuli minagen, they said, you know what? Forget about the working on the head stuff and talking it through. We'll start with the behavior, and it's going to inspire an emotion. Right? Start with the dancing, and it'll inspire an emotion. Right? Do something good. You know, sometimes you work out something in your head, but practically you never changed. Right? They have this great cartoon where Charlie Brown, you know the famous Charlie Brown cartoons? So she says, I've been working on my outer obnoxiousness, but I still have my inner sarcasm. Right? It's great. She talked it through, so now she's not an obnoxious person, but be'etzem, nothing changed. Right? First, as you said, you went to a class of chesed. You start giving. You know, you have some people that not everybody gets along with each other. That's fact. You know, sometimes you meet somebody and you don't even know why, you just don't like them. Yeah? And then other people you meet and you love them even before they start talking to you. Right? It happens. It happens. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, when you give to somebody, right? It says ahava, right? Comes from the root word of have to give. And the famous question, I believe the Rambam and many commentaries ask, where it says va'ahavta et Hashem Elokecha, right? How do you command an emotion? You can't tell me how to feel. Right? If I'm angry, I'm angry. If I'm sad, I'm sad. How do you make me feel? The answer is yes, you could. Yes, you could. Right? I'll show you right now.
Give a piece
right?
of chocolate.
Oh, give you a piece of chocolate always works. Right? You know, close your eyes for a minute, or don't, leave them open. And try to just think about if you're standing by La Jolla Shores, right? And you could see the beautiful water thrashing. And you could hear the seals going, ah, 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 ah. Right? And you look at the beautiful sky, you could smell like the seagulls in the air. And you take a deep breath. And what do you see? Right? What do you feel? So relaxed. Right? So relaxed. Now close your eyes again and let's try this. Right? You're standing in Manhattan by the subway and it's boiling hot and there are thousands of people smashing you and you feel people sneezing on your neck and you hear the train going right? And you see somebody just about to fall off the platform. What do you feel? Very stressed. Right? Very stressed. The answer is, you didn't move out of my dining room. Right? You didn't go anywhere. But with your thoughts, you're able to travel to so many places. Right? You're able to travel to so many places. And the ability to tap into our emotions comes from both our mind and our actions. And Yoshua, standing 30 days later, says, there's a time for Avelut, and now's the time to move on. Now let's look into the Psukim and see. So now that he gets the Nevuah, right, what are we on to? So if you look at Pasuk Bet, first Pasuk Aleph still. Yeah? Vayomer Hashem el Yoshua. So now Hashem says to Yoshua, Bin Nun, right? He says to Yoshua, Bin Nun, Misharet Moshe Leimo. Yeah, so usually how do you say son in Hebrew?
Ben.
Ben. Why is he called Bin Nun? Why not Ben? So it's interesting because he's missing, how do you spell Ben? What are the nekudot you would put on the bottom? Oh, you would put Ben, not a tzerei, segol, right? Ben,
בן של איש זה שתי נקודות, זה צורך.
Ben. Ready? What are the nekudot you would put for an S sound?
I think two,
זה צורך.
Bang. Oh, that's bang.
Ben.
Bang. But how do you say Ben with the F?
גם.
Segol.
לא.
Yeah? So if you go into Tanakh, תבדקי. In Tanakh you'll see Ben is always going to be with the
אבל
segol.
איזה בן את רוצה? יש בן between, יש בן son.
Oh no, son.
son it's בן
Son is going to be with a
ככה.
segol.
לא, זה יהיה ככה.
ככה כתוב. בואו נבדוק. בואו נבדוק.
בואו נסתכל.
If you look at...
No,
I'll tell you where to look. Come, I'm gonna bring a chumash. Let's look. Yeah? Let's look at the chumash.
כמה שאני יודעת זה שתי נקודות.
לא, בכלל לא מתווכח. אני אקח מה שאתה...
Two thoughts is between, no?
No, that's something
It could be.
else.
Ben as in son. Let's see.
It's with you.
Here, let's see.
בן נמצא.
Shania, you gonna look?
שנייה.
Okay.
אוקיי,
I'm gonna look up there. I'm gonna look into the Bereshit.
וואו. כמה ספרים כעת מקבלים.
וילדו עליהם.
Hi, Gucci. He's so cute.
הנה, בבקשה, מצאתי. כל הבן הילוד היורט השליחו.
No, no,
שתי
no.
נקודות.
Nachon. That's when you see son. No. Give me when it says a name. Let's say it says Moshe ben Amram.
הבן של.
כן, משה בן עמרם. Or...
מפן. זה אני לא יודעת, כי אני התייחסתי.
You're right. No, את צודקת.
אוקיי.
כל אחד צודק.
Yeah, let's find over here. We're gonna find. If you go to the, look by the Nisim, you'll find over there all of the Ben.
בני ישראל, שלא יודעת.
I'll find it. Emil, not so much in here.
תמשיכי, אני אמצא לך, אל תדאגי. בבראשית יש בפרשה
גם, this is not בראשית.
בתולדות יהיה
Come, give me
בבראשית.
the Shemot. I'll show you in a minute.
זה בראשית? ויקרא, לא, את נכנסים
שלח יתרו משפט. Here. Oh, here. In Parshat Pekudei. Yeah, if you open up to Pekudei anywhere, Lametchet Pasuk Chav Gimel. Ubetzalel ben Uri.
כן.
Yeah, Ben is with Segol.
באמת?
Ben Chur against Segol, Mata Yehuda. Yeah, V'ito Aliyah Ben against Segol. Anytime you're going to see...
סמיכות.
כן, לא יודעת.
יכול להיות, I don't know what the dikduk behind it is. That's the truth. I don't know what the
כן,
dikduk
זה
is.
סמיכות, תסתכלי.
כן?
כשיש לך את זה, זה אומר the son of אחי סמך, אז בגלל זה.
Oh, okay, so every
כי
time...
השני, בן, the son,
No, not-
just son, זה...
מצוין. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, so every time you're going to find that, you're going to find so-and-so, the son of, it's always with a segol. Always.
3 dots.
I guess now we know why, because of the smichut. Yeah?
What?
It's always going to be 3 dots.
Yeah.
The son of is always going to be 3 dots.
2 dots. What's 2
When
dots?
it's just son, like son and daughter.
Just son.
So, I read something very interesting, where why is it when you say Yehoshua bin Nun, yeah? You say bin and not ben. It should also be segol. So, one of the Mepharshim say that normally the segol stands for the 3 partners in creation. Right? We know there are 3 shutafim. You, your spouse, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Right? You, your spouse, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu that are involved in raising children. But Yehoshua bin Nun, though, Where did he mostly learn his Torah from?
Moshe.
Moshe Rabbeinu. Moshe Rabbeinu.
We don't hear anything.
Moshe Rabbeinu. In fact, we almost know nothing about his parents. Almost know nothing about his parents. And therefore, it wouldn't be accurate to say Ben as in the three shutafim, including his parents. As much as it was one, he followed directly Moshe Rabbeinu, which linked to HaKadosh Baruch Hu.
How do you spell it?
Bin.
Bin.
With a chirik. It's one dot.
One dot. Oh.
One dot.
Ah.
Another interesting explanation.
It's close to the word bina.
Oh, beautiful. So the second explanation said it comes from the word of bina. Lahavin. Yoshua wasn't the only student of Moshe Rabbeinu. But what made him different was he had a certain bina yitera where he was able to understand. He was able to understand the people. He was able to understand what Moshe was trying to give over, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted. And that's specifically what made him a Jewish leader. Right? Because to be able to lead doesn't mean you have knowledge. Yeah, you have some people who are brilliant, but they don't know how to lead. Right? They don't know how to lead. Sometimes they come to a class and the only thing the rabbi wants to show is how smart he is. But then the students walk out and they don't know what they learned. They didn't learn anything. Right? That's the difference between somebody who just speaks and somebody who really educates. Yoshua bin Nun had a certain level of bina that he was able to really tap into and understand the people. And there was a third commentary that said, if you look at the name Yehoshua, what was his original name?
Hosea.
Hosea. Right? Hosea. Where did he get the yud from? From? Not Yaakov. Sarai. Right? Sarai. He took the yud from Sarai. Now let's look at the nukudot. I have to get them straight.
Isn't the Torah, isn't the Nukudot?
Doesn't.
The genuine Torah?
No.
לא,
It doesn't.
And Nukudot.
It doesn't, but it has
No.
tagim, right, on the top, the little things on the bottom of how to read it. We put the nukudot on how, let's say, means this, right? I don't know what the comparison would be in the Torah.
So it's the tagging is
Yeah,
Ta'amim.
the ta'amim.
Ta'amim.
Correct. Here, so this the Chozeh of Lublin says, right? The Chozeh was known. He was called the Chozeh because he was able to see. People would come to him. And sometimes you come to somebody and have a problem. They can't help you, not because they can't help you, but because they can't even see past themselves. So how could they help you? Yeah, sometimes you tell somebody a problem, and they say, "Oh, you think you have an issue? You should hear what I have, right? You think that hurts you? Oh, you should have seen me 5 years ago." When people come talk to you, they don't want to hear about your problems. They're coming because they want you to listen. And the Chozeh had the ability to not just see people, but he was able to see through them. He was able to see what they really needed. So he says, "Tam lama nakud ben b'chirik." Right? Why is bin written with a chirik, the e sound? He says, "Kevan shahayud natal hakadosh baruch hu misarai." Right? Hashem took the yud from Sarai's name. Natan liYehoshua, and he gave it to Yehoshua. Be'et shenishtana shmo liYehoshua. Right? When he changed the name to Yehoshua, he took that yud. והיות ואצל שרה היה בסוף השם ולא היה לה ניקוד, right? Sarai, the yud was at the end and didn't have any nikud, right? Sarai didn't have anything. לקח ניטלו שתי נקודות מהסגול, so therefore Hashem took from the segol of Ben 2 nekudot and he put it under the yud, and now the name is Yehoshua, yeah, which is an interesting thing. Again, Sarai, the yud at the end doesn't have nekudot, right? You have to have Yehoshua needs the 2. The shulik, right? Not shva, the shva. So he took from the segol 2 and put it underneath, and now you end up with Yehoshua bin Nun. Make sense? Right, so we have Shua ben Nun, Misharet Moshe Lemor. Hashem comes to Yehoshua ben Nun and says the following. I want to read Pasuk Bet. You have it over there? Yeah, Dal, you have? Yalla. Pasuk Bet.
משה עבדי מת, ואתה קום עבור את הירדן, תכף נראה, כן? זכרתי משהו, איפה זה?
A few more pages. עוד כמה.
את הירדן הזה, אתה וכל העם הזה, אל הארץ אשר אנוכי נותן להם לבני ישראל.
So Hashem says to Yoshua, now that Moshe Rabbeinu died, now we're finally able to go in. Now we're able to go over. Up until now, Moshe Rabbeinu could not come into Israel. Right? Moshe Rabbeinu couldn't come in, and therefore the Jews, 40 years were in the desert. Moshe Rabbeinu could lead. Only now that Moshe Rabbeinu died, Hashem says, Now we can cross over. V'ata, and now kum avar et hayarden hazeh. You, who should go? Ata, you, v'kol ha'am hazeh, and the whole nation. You know, we should go. El ha'aretz asher anochi noten lahem livnei Yisrael. Go to the land that I'm giving to my people. Right? Way back when Avraham Avinu had the Brit Ben Hattarim, Hashem said, I'm giving you this land. And finally we're standing over here at the beginning of history. Hashem says to Yeshua, now's the time to go over. Now's the time to go over. Now, there's a fascinating Gemara that tells us what happened when Moshe Rabbeinu died and Yeshua took over. So the Gemara says that Ita b'Gemara. Yeah? Gemara tells us, Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Shmuel. Right? Rabbi Yehuda says in the name of Rabbi Shmuel. What happened? When Moshe Rabbeinu died, 3,000 halachot nishtakhu b'yemei avlo shel Moshe. When Moshe Rabbeinu died, 3,000 different halachot were forgotten. Completely forgotten. Amru lo Yoshua. And so what happened? The Jewish people come, Bnei Israel come to Yoshua and they said, Sha'al. Right? Go ask Hashem. Amar lo, so what does Hashem say to him? Lo b'Shamayim. Torah is not in Shamayim anymore. That's it. Amru lo, right? So then they said later on to Shmuel Hanavi, Sha'al, ask. Amar lahem, and he said to them, Elu ha-mitzvot she'en hanavi rashai l'chadesh davar me'ata. Right? You can't make anything up that's new. You can discover what's old, you can interpret it, you can learn it, but you can't make up anything else. V'sham ita amar Rabbi Yehuda amar Rav. What happened? So what happened? Why did they forget 3,000 halachot? B'sha'a she'niftar Moshe legan Eden. When Moshe Rabbeinu was niftar, right? He was leaving one world and entering a different world. He turns to Yoshua, amar la Yoshua. He says to Yoshua, Sha'al mimenu. Ask me kol ha'sveikot sheyesh lecha. Ask me anything that you're not sure of. Ask me. Right? Here's your opportunity. I'm leaving this world. Ask me anything you want. And what does Yoshua say? Amar lo, Rabbi, hanachticha sha'a achat v'halachti lemakom acher. So I have nothing to ask. What happens? Miyad tashash kocho shel Yoshua. Immediately Yoshua lost his strength. V'nishtakhu mimenu 300 halachot. And immediately forgot 300 halachot. V'noldu lo 700 svekot. And 700 different svekot. Is it right? Am I not right? Suddenly popped up into his head. And what happened? V'amdu kol Yisrael la'orgo. The whole Jewish people wanted to kill him. What kind of leader are you? Now suddenly 300 you forget, 700 new problems you come up with. Amar lo HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Hashem says to him, Lomar lecha, i'efshar. He said, that's it, I can't tell you. Torah was given to Moshe Rabbeinu at Sinai. Once Moshe Rabbeinu passes away, that's it. We can't add. Lo yomush sefer Torah mipicha. That's it. Whatever it is, it is. He says, and now, lech toridan b'milchama. Go continue and fight the war. Go get busy with something else. Because what was. Amar Rabbabahu, afal piken. So Rabbabahu says, even still so, Hechziran Otniel ben Kenaz. Otniel Kenaz, right, Haya Shofet Arishon, he was the first of the judges. He brought back these halachot that we forgot. How did he bring it back, though? Mitoch pilpulo. Through learning from what we do have, he was able to remember what we lost. Asher Yakeh, and therefore, right, it says Asher Yakeh et Kiryat Sefer v'lachda, right, that he hit the city of Kiryat Sefer and he captured it. V'lachda Otniel ben Kenaz, meaning, right, Kiryat Sefer, the city of Svarim. He ended up going and recapturing the halachot. And this Gemara has tons of questions. What is going on here? Right, what's going on here? And how does it connect to this pasuk? Right, that's the question. So you have to understand that, firstly, it's not the first time it happens, it's not the last. We find similarly, when Eliyahu Hanavi is going up to Shamayim, he turns to Elisha, and if you go into Melachim Bet, if I'm not mistaken, it's Perek Gimel. Beautiful. Melachim Bet, Perek Bet, Pasuk Tet. Right? Eliyahu Hanavi is just about to pass away. He's just about to go into the next world. and Elisha's going to take over. And if you look at the pasuk, it says, "Vayhi kavram," right? When they were passing from one city to the next, Hashem was sending him to different areas. Ve'Eliyahu amar el Elisha. Eliyahu turns to Elisha, and he says to him, "Shaar me'eselach." He says, "Ask me. What could I do for you? Right? What could I do for you?" Now, why is it that both Moshe Rabbeinu, Eliyahu Hanavi, are asking their students at the time of their ptirah, the time of their deaths, ask me something. Ask me for something. Right? So, when you're 20,
It's the last chance.
So we're entering a stage where Moshe Rabbeinu is basically done with this world. He's going into a completely different world. Right? He's going into the Olam HaEmet. He's going into the world of truth. And he turns to Yoshua and he says, Chazal tell us something interesting. Chazal tell us that Mikol Milam, I learned from everybody. Mikol Milamdai Hiskalti, right? So what does Chazal tell us? Who did I learn from? Chazal tells that it says Mikol Milamdai Hiskalti, right? I learned from all my from everybody. It says Mirabotai, from my teachers, from my parents. But then it says Umitalmidai Yotel Mikulam. But for my students, I learn the most. Because when you teach, it's not about teaching as much as it's about the person who's there to receive. If you've ever taught a class, you know that you learn more by preparing for a class than actually just sitting in a class. Why? Because you have to think, what might she ask? What might the other person ask? And then somebody throws in a third question that you never even thought of. And it makes you think a lot more. Right? And Eliyahu Hanavi over here says to Elisha, and Moshe Rabbeinu saying to Yoshua, they say, we want to give you back a favor. You've taught us so much by learning from us. Right? By you being our students, you've learned so much from us, but you taught me more. You taught me more. When you go to learn by somebody, when we sit together over here, I always say, I'm learning. If you're listening, it's a good thing. Right? But in the end of the day, we inspire other people to teach better. If you go to somewhere and they don't let ask questions, it's not a good place to learn. Sometimes you go somewhere and they shoot down your questions, right? Because they have an agenda. This is what I wanted to teach today. This is what I'm going to cover. And if it doesn't fit in, so I'm going to make sure to shoot it down, or I'm going to give you an answer that doesn't make sense. A real teacher is somebody who could say, I don't know. Let me find out. Let me ask. And the truth is, we all learn from each other. I'm sitting here, but I learn from you. I just learned something about smichut, right? Samchut or smichut. Smichut, okay, right? We learn from each other. And in essence, Moshe Rabbeinu is turning to Yoshua and he says, my whole life I'm teaching you, but I'm also learning from you. Because you inspire me to change. You inspire me to be a bigger person. You inspire me to bet. You find this a lot when you have children. Often people do things until their children come around. Right? Why? Because they say, it doesn't matter. What I do with my own life I could do. But for my children, right? So the answer is no. You also have to take care of yourself. But the truth is, children do inspire change in us. Because we want to be certain people, but sometimes it's hard to live up to that. But then when you have a tiny little child looking and say, but Ima, why do you say this and do that? They really put us to test. It's kind of like, his dad was once called into the principal's office. And he said, I don't know, I don't understand my son. I don't know why he keeps on stealing everybody's pencils. I told him if he needs pencils, I'll make sure when my boss doesn't see, I'll bring some home from work. Right? The answer is, right. So, it's like, you go to the amusement parks and suddenly you tell the kids, shh, say you're 12. A whole life you're trying to teach the kids not to lie. And now you've given them the most important lesson, that money matters more than truth. Right? Because you tell them to say the truth, but kids are brilliant. Kids are brilliant. They don't get the...
I don't think most parents teach their kids to say the truth.
I think most people try to teach their kids good things.
They try.
They do. They try. I think people try.
Those who
There's
can.
different levels of try.
I was once with my nephew in Holy Bagel, and he should live and be well Yoni. He was about 7-8 years old, and everybody fills up their plates, and he looks at the guy that ordered right before me, and he says, "Why does he have so much food on his plate?" I said, "Shh." He said, "But why?" I said, "I don't know. You could ask him." So he went over to the guy, and he said, "Why do you have so much food on your plate?" And the guy said, "Because I'm very hungry." Right? Now, in the end of the day, kids are very honest. They say what we think. Right? They say what we think. we think, oh, she looks so funny. And the kid will say, Ma, she looks so funny. Right? Because they don't have that filter yet. They don't have the filter where, you meet somebody, so you have to be diplomatic, and you say, oh, that was very interesting what you said. What do you mean? Oh, that was so stupid. I can't believe you said it. Right? Or, whenever I tell people I'm the youngest of 13, they always say, oh, your mother's so brave. You know what they mean? She's nuts. She's nuts. Right? That's what they mean. Well, after my mother had me, she went with one of my sisters to the doctor, and she said, maybe I'm having another baby. The doctor said, how many do you have? She said, I have 13, but maybe I'm having another one. The doctor said, 1 second, lady, you don't need my office. You need a shrink. You need a psychologist, not me. Right? You don't need me. But the truth is, kids are very honest, and they push us to become who we really are. Because in essence, we're really good people. We are. We're really good. I'm telling you, people are made good. It says we're made b'tselem Elokim. It has to be we're good. But it happens. We get tired. We cut corners. It's hard. It is hard. It's sometimes hard to live up to our expectations. But when you have students and we have children, they challenge us in ways that other people don't. Because even if I didn't want to do something, what would it look like to somebody else? And what would it look like to your child? What would it look like? Thank God I grew up, and my mother's a tzaddiket. She really, really is. In many ways. Not just raising us, but when she would tell me to, let's say to pray in the morning, right, or to be a little more tzniut. It's never easy to take musaf from people. That's the truth. Nobody wants to be told you're not doing something good. Nobody. Right? Especially when the other person doesn't have your intentions in mind. Right? Then for sure you don't want to hear it. But when I would hear it from my mother, it was hard, but I could accept it. Because she was exactly what she was asking me to be. She was exactly what she was asking me to be. Right? Sometimes people complain, especially, and I've heard this many times, my parents only care what it looks like for the world. Right? They care so much about what the whole world thinks, more than what they care about me. Right? And it's true a lot of the time. Shh. Right? Don't say that, it's not nice. Yeah? I remember when one of the senators were speaking, and they thought the microphone was off, and he started cursing. Right? And the answer is, yeah, because we grew up in a society where on the outside it's not okay to curse, but inside the house, sure you can curse. And then when you see the little kids saying not nice things, little kids don't, by nature, know bad things. They don't. Little kids are pure. They're innocent. The only place they could have learned it is from the home. Right? Or from outside once they start going outside. And Moshe Rabbeinu turns to Yehoshua and he says, you've given me the biggest gift as a leader, to lead, to really expand my horizons, and I want to give back to you. I want to give back to you. Specifically now. Why? The Zohar HaKadosh says that right before a person dies, right, specifically tzaddikim, they get inspiration that a whole life they didn't have. Right? They're passing on to a different world. They're going into the world of Olam HaEmet, where the distractions of this world don't exist anymore. They're not there anymore. And since Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, right, Lag BaOmer is known as the Hilula. If you've ever been to the kever of Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, you have a crazy dynamics. Inside it looks like Yom Kippur. Everyone's crying and davening, and just you can feel the inspiration. And then you just walk outside and the music's blaring. Reb Shimon Bar Yochai, and people are donating and dancing, and then they're doing chalakot. And it's amazing. On the inside it's Yom Kippur, on the outside it's Simchat Torah. And it's an interesting dynamics over there. And it's an interesting thing. If he died on that day, why are we celebrating? Right? What's the simcha? So we know what happened when Reb Shimon Bar Yochai died. It says that the day that he was nifta, he took all his students, right, his Chavraya Kadisha, he brought them and he revealed to them Sodot of the Torah, all the Torah Nistar. And he said, on this day I want you to make, it's like a wedding. Because this is the day it's true. So he's no longer in this world. But the Torah that he revealed, it's all over. He spread a light, it says. His ma'ara, his house, was surrounded by so much light. And Moshe Rabbeinu is now passing on to the next world. And he turns to Yoshua and he says, ask for me. Because if you'll ask, I'll be able to give. And unfortunately, Yoshua doesn't ask. He says, why should I bother you? Right? Why should I bother you? Yoshua wasn't being stupid. As much as he said, Moshe Rabbeinu, you have so little time left. Oh, you have so little time left. Right? Now, why do you think he knew it all? He wasn't about God.
He said, because he was sitting by him all the time.
It says he was sitting by Moshe Rabbeinu. Right? He sat by the feet of Moshe Rabbeinu. He said, what's it for me to ask? I learned everything from you. From the day you became the leader, I've been at your side.
Sorry.
And sometimes we have to know how to ask. Because there's so much good that people want to give us, and we just don't ask. Sometimes you meet people, and you want to learn from them, but you're too embarrassed to ask. And then you know what happens? You don't learn. Right? It says, Lo habayshan, lo med. Right? But even more than that, sometimes you need something. You're having a hard day. Right? And you need a hug. You need a good word. And the truth is, it's not fun to ask. Right? Nobody wants to say, I need. It's hard to say, I need you. It's really hard to say, I need, because when we say I need, it means I'm missing something. Right? It means I'm missing something. Now, what's wrong with missing something? Nothing.
Nothing at all.
Nothing. The answer is nothing. But in truth, it takes away from that image that we build of me. I don't need anything. Right? I don't need you. I never need anything. The truth is, we all need. We all need. I need friends. You need friends. We all need each other. Because people need, right? Kadosh Baruch Hu didn't create a world where you live on one island and I live on a different island and we never interact. Right? There's a reason that we interact. And we all need. And sometimes we gyp ourselves. I have this girl in seminary. Whole year I wanted to be her friend. I was too cool to ever start that friendship. And I often wonder, Baruch Hashem, I have enough friends. That girl has not been doing very well recently. I know through other mutual friends, and I often think I'm sure we could have both gained from each other. I'm sure we could have both gained from each other, because as much as she could have given me, I'm sure I could give her, and I'm sure she had so much that I could gain. But you know what? I was just 18. I was 18, and I didn't want to ask. So then you lose out on a friendship. But sometimes it's so much more. Hakadosh Baruch Hu says to us, Sha'al mimena ve'etna. Right? Ask, and I'm going to give you. But sometimes we just don't ask. Right? We just don't ask. It's like you're having such a rough day. You're having a rough week, a rough month. Like Hakadosh Baruch Hu says, so ask me. I'm here. Ask me. Right? It's like the person who's begging Hashem, I need money. Make me win the lottery. Make me win the lottery. Months. And one of the angels says, die. Right? Enough. Why don't you just give him the lottery? And Rabbanit Devorah Halevy says, I would give it to him. I'm just waiting for him to buy the ticket. Right? So sometimes you ask, but you don't ask right. And we have to stop. Forget about start. We have to stop being so embarrassed. We worry so much what the world's going to think about us. What's she going to think if I ask? And what's this one going to think? Just today, as I was leaving Torah High, one of the students came up to me. She said, can I talk to you? I said, sure. And she said, but I'm going to cry. I said, okay. I said, what's wrong with cry? She said, no, I look really silly when I cry. I said, so I won't look at you. I said, but you should know, crying is just a very deep emotion. That's all it is. When you're very happy, you cry. When you're very sad, you cry. When you're very angry, you cry. Crying is it's your neshama talking. It's your neshama breathing a little bit. I said, don't be so shy. And she asked me something. That was very painful. And I said to her, you're allowed to cry, because it hurts. Right? Stop being so embarrassed of everybody. And I told her, Bezrat Hashem, we'll try to work on this. We'll try to work it through. So often we have things that we carry in our hearts that are so heavy. And the scariest thing is to feel alone. And Ribbono Shel Olam says, you're never alone. If you'll ask me, I'm going to be there for you. I am there. I never moved. You know what happens sometimes when things are scary? We close our eyes so dark that we feel so alone. And if there's one thing we can learn from Yoshua, and we're going to Bezrat Hashem continue this next time with, so what's the solution? Right? What's the solution to when you don't ask and you lose out? Then what? Do we stay in the Emek HaBacha? Do we just cry forever? Or do we listen to HaKadosh Baruch Hu's advice of get up and move on? Continue your life. But we have to still focus on this week. Think about, what does it mean to ask? Right? What can you ask? Who can you ask? And if you haven't been asking, ask. And if you know somebody who's too shy to ask, reach out to them. Because I bet you if you'll reach out and you'll help them, when you'll reach out to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, guaranteed He'll reach back to you. B'ezrat Hashem, we should have a week where we ask, Yimalei Hashem Mishalot Libcha L'Tova. Right? It should be L'Tova, Amen.